our mother.
Don't do that.
Feel better?
I know I get a little nervous.
I'll go ask. I bet he pulled him out.
Is it okay? Is it okay?
Yeah, don't be careful with that paper.
Other ones if you want to, you know,
Yeah.
anything you want.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
it's
I
easier.
got microwave.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
And look, at you can tell Mom, there's a bunch of coupons in the back.
Okay.
Anyway, well, but the main thing is don't feel guilty if you don't use much of it.
My,
By the way,
phone said we're going to be
look at the
married on
ladies.
June
How could that
13th.
shine that
I
with a
want to be
battery?
married on the 13th.
And thanks
And
for
he
the
says, "Well,
the
that's the way they
fantastic
set it up
preserves.
here, if you want
Debbie
to
was
marry,
trying to
you'll have
have me open them the other day because she ran out. She won't get any more until Christmas, she said. So I haven't. He was the one that was in trouble?
Neil, is that who you meant? Neil?
Yes, Neil. That's the one I'm thinking
Neil, George, and Jeff?
of. The one with the Silverado's name was
Neil
Neil.
is the, that's
Oh,
right.
this is Bergstrom Air Force Base. It says, I love Bergstrom Air Force Base. And Mom suggested a decade, okay?
Each commemorate what?
A decade.
Okay.
Okay, because we didn't want to really, you know.
All right, Tommy, come on in.
We're in
How many
ceremony
years is
here.
the decade, Anna?
10 years. So 8 decades would be 80 years.
And why are you doing that?
I'm not being very successful.
Grandpa, come close.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alan. Happy birthday to you.
Very good.
All right.
Very nice. Are those
Very
those
good.
type that keep lighting?
No.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what,
They're skinny, very thin.
Get his
That's a lot of
face in it.
cake, I'll tell you.
Get his face if you can.
Poppy, Poppy.
Yes, dear.
Oh, Sam's going to
Oh, you want to
take
get my
a
picture? Okay. How's this?
Me too.
Debonair.
Get his face.
Okay, Poppy, one more pose. I'm the
Yeah,
taker.
Abby gets to
Okay,
take
Abby gets
one.
to take one. Okay, now Poppy, okay, you should take one. I can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Poppy, think of a pose. Think of a pose. Okay, here goes Abby. A little different. Say it with me.
Yeah, that's about right.
That'll be good. Smile. Wait,
But Abby, you should be with him.
there, wait, that's perfect. Keep smiling, ready. Sam!
No.
Just
Come on, come on.
Stay out of it, Sam.
Sandy, no good.
Get out, Sam!
We're missing a
Hurry up,
We
hurry
should
up.
wake her
Get
up.
out of the picture! I'm out. No, you're not.
Abby, just take it now.
That's it.
Abby, I knew.
Now go over there and write a
Abby, I don't want anybody
She
going
is
over where Eliza is.
Question two. I have some books here, so it won't take your time. Won't be a complete loss while I'm talking. When I look at just the pictures in them as they come around. Everything else, I think you'll find them interesting. I just wanted to say thank you for having this party for me, and the daughter and anybody else that helped organize it, and
Jim and
it's
Deb,
been this
Jim and
wonderful
Deb.
thing. I would like to mention that we have a younger celebrant here who is having their birthday too. 2 days ago. I mean, 2 days ago. It was just 70th birthday. I mean,
Young guy.
Young whippersnapper.
Thank you.
I might say
First
that
time of
for those of you that have yet to come the path, why getting old isn't bad at all. You get to do what you want to, you know, and say what you think, and do what you feel, what you want to feel. And also, I've been very lucky in my life, and I suppose that I'm grateful for it, and I think I appreciate the fact that I was lucky in my life. I was going to, during this period, I was going to cover my time up to going through West Point and going out into service, getting the flying training, becoming a flying instructor, going overseas during the war, and bring it to the end of World War II. And then if we have another one, say on my 85th or 90th, why, I think
You
I'll
should
carry
follow
on
the
through my
rest.
time at Stanford, and in the Pentagon and the 5-story marble palace there, and my first tour in Germany in occupation, as part of the occupation troops. And then my 95th, why, I might finish up my career. It's 30 years, so it's a long time. Let me just mention some of the things why I'm so lucky. See, my dad wrote me when I was a junior in Missouri University, and well on my way to becoming a petroleum geologist. Says, I think I can get you an appointment to Sonny, you interested? And I said, oh yeah, sure. So I went down to Jefferson Barracks. I didn't have to take the written exam because I had finished some college work, so that was accepted in lieu of actually taking the written exam, which was pretty difficult. Passed the physical okay. I was what was called a second alternate, which meant that the other two guys were ahead of me, and they both had to fail before they got to me. Well, they both failed, and so I was alternate. My third alternate I went to West Point. Let me get my notes so I won't go too slowly here. Okay. Well, when I went to West Point, I didn't know anything it was like, but anyway, I enjoyed it, and I qualified for flight training, and this was something I always wanted to do my whole life, and I would have paid for it gladly if I'd had the time and the money to do so. Instead, they paid me extra to take it. Well, how can you beat that?
Did you have good eyes?
Yeah, and incidentally, also, I had a girlfriend I was very much interested in that waited 3 years for me to get out of West Point so we could get married. And this was the girl here. And
Yes, that was a good move for her.
opportunity she passed up. Here she was, a high school teacher in a mining town in Colorado, with a bunch of engineers and bachelor professional people around, you know, the place. And so they gave her a run for her money, but
She picked it up.
I tried to keep her interested, you know, and all that. And I didn't think it'd work, but it did. And so we got married on graduation then. Well, went to training. I qualified, I passed the physical, because they had an extra, pretty arduous physical for flying training. Went to training in first basic primary school was at Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Okay, our base pay as a second lieutenant was $125 a month. Since we were on flying training, and they never quite decided what the reason was, either because you had a lesser longevity, or you were doing a more hazardous thing, I don't know which. They gave us extra pay. I got 50%, we got 50% in addition to our base pay. Okay, you take 50% of 125. All right, well, my classmates who weren't taking flying training, they were getting just the base pay, and I married a second lieutenant, could live off of it, but not very high. Well, regardless of the 50% addition, you know, we were high on the hog. I mean, we bought what kind of steaks? 3 for 50 cents?
Yeah, we got, well, in Alabama, we were able to get 3 T-bone steaks for 50 cents.
What year was that?
But
39,
1939. But when we
1939.
moved to Texas, we only got 2 T-bone steaks for 50 cents. And I was upset because I thought they all grew that meat.
They did.
Okay, well, went through flying training, went to basic at Randolph Field, and then advanced at Kelly, which is all in San Antonio. Graduated in June of 1940, and was assigned as an instructor back at Randolph Field. Well, instructing has always been kind of my interest to me. I've always been interested in instructing and seeing if something can't be done to help someone through something, you know, and get them through it. So I was getting what I wanted, even more so than had previously. And there, I was at Randolph as an instructor when Pearl Harbor came along. And we spent one day out to park our airplanes out along the fence line because there was a rumor that there was a jet something in the Gulf, you know, that was thinking of, I don't know what, coming overland or something and getting us.
Can I ask you, do you remember the minute that you heard about Pearl Harbor and what you felt like?
Well, what were you doing? And everybody says they remember.
No, I can't place it.
No?
You can though, Mom, can't you?
I can remember the day vividly because Bud Hall, Martha's brother, age 17 then, was visiting us, and he was going to, go with us to visit my sister May, who was very ill in Indiana. Ann was 6 months old. And Alan had planned to go with us. Well, Pearl Harbor hit, and you came in and said, sorry,
You could have
I'm
moved
not
the
going
plane.
anyplace.
But you must have felt like that's the end of something in the beginning.
Oh, yes, that's the reason I don't remember what caused it, because I
Yeah.
remember immediately thinking, well, we're gonna have to do something,
Yeah.
Yes, where is Randolph Field?
Randolph, San Antonio, east side.
Oh, it's south, okay,
It's
sorry,
right.
go ahead.
Very pretty field, built in the 30s and. Very
Okay,
pretty.
now I've got it.
Well, I was as an instructor, I had students for about a year, and then things started going pretty fast, Pearl Harbor came along, and after a year, I had a squadron, and that meant I didn't have students. I mean, I flew with students that we thought we had to wash out. I was a check pilot on students' eliminations, and I'd fill in once in a while if an instructor was absent. So I didn't have too many students of my own, just a year of students, and that would be 3 classes. But one of the very pleasant things in my career was having people come up to me and say, you were my instructor,
Yeah.
Colonel Hertzberg, and we had one that came told Edna, he says,
And that survived the
Colonel
whole
Hertzberg
thing.
saved my life. I didn't quite understand that. And how did he explain
He
that?
came up and says, incidentally, this man now has grown up to be one of these very wealthy businessmen doing well in the world. He says, I just want to thank you to Alan. And he says, what for? He says, you washed me out. He said, if you hadn't washed me out, I would have killed myself. And I'd be here today to say thank you.
So you get a little time.
Alan, let me ask, when Pearl Harbor came and you were teaching pilots, right?
Yeah.
And so you
Instructor.
didn't think that you would have to go and fly necessarily.
I have to what?
To go and fly, yeah,
No, but Ellie, they set up a squadron right away, and he was in charge of it.
yeah.
And then he not only talked, he just checked pilots that were, I'm just bringing Alice up to date.
I can answer that for you.
Yeah.
They may not have thought that he was going to have to go to war, but boy, was he ready.
Yeah.
Because when he got up to Waco, he kept trying to get
Somebody
into
in my
combat.
tape.
I thought the government spent a lot of money on West Point, and I thought it was for being of use and necessary in combat. And I always felt sorry for my classmates that didn't make it to a war zone. In fact, right after I got out of the training command, I went to 4-engine training. The training command was able to get them to close up on all the officers of my seniority and so on, because they said, we need them, And, well, those poor guys were stuck in there in training till the war was over.
Good.
I was in the Pentagon at the end of the war. Here they came through, and at the end of the war, they sent them all overseas en masse, all the ones that could hold the ZI.
To try to become
And I felt
colonels.
sorry for them, and as I say, I always felt that unless you had a chance to go to combat, like you hadn't done what the government was paying you for, and that trained you for, and giving you a necessary training. Okay, now let's see, we were...
Where was 4-engine training? You said you were at 4-engine.
Fort Worth. I'm coming to that
Fort
now.
Worth, right here. Oh, I see. Okay, go ahead.
We were a year and a half, there were 150 of us in the West Point class, except for flight training. 199 of us actually graduated from Kelly. Usually 1/3 attrition, and flying training is what the normal attrition is. And about half of us, I think, went back to Randolph Field, so we were practically just still with our old classmates, all the time. And we were one among the last of our class to leave Randolph. We spent about a year and a half there, didn't we? And of course,
Before you went overseas.
Before he went to Waco. I mean, they would gradually, the way this worked, is they'd open new fields, usually primary fields.
They'd send.
right? Usually primary.
Yeah.
They would send some of these men to take care of that. Well, John Samuel and Allen were the last 2 West Pointers out of our 100 who were left at Randolph to keep instructing. Then Allen, I don't remember where Samuel went, but Allen went to Waco as director of flying, right?
well, no, I was a squadron commander.
When did you become director of flying?
Yeah, I went to Waco when they opened that field for training, and got some rather fast promotions. I went there as a first lieutenant. I was a captain for 2 months,
Wow.
and major for a year, I think it was.
No kidding.
And
That's
getting
great.
along all right. That's the same part, being lucky, you know, on that.
I'll
And
bet.
I had a squadron there and had that for about 6 months, I guess, so on. And they were still opening new fields and they were taking the older men, sending them out to it, you know. So I got to be the director of flying at the Waco. Probably the most enjoyable job I ever had.
Is
And
that
I didn't realize it, the most independent job I ever had. I could do anything I wanted to. I mean, I could fly anywhere I wanted to, do most anything I wanted to. I had, Colonel Sprague was the base commander, and he was he was the only one I was accountable to. He seemed to like what I was doing and so on, so he's always supported me and everything. Well, let's see, I was trying to think of something I did. They were asking us if we could train artillery, field artillery students to get the puddle jumpers for spotting artillery fire, you know.
Right,
going
yeah,
back in.
recon.
And they just use Taylor craft or Cessna type of craft. They want to know if we could give training for them. Well, we didn't want to use our regular runways because different aircraft, different characteristics don't mix very well, you know, different speeds and different requirements and so on. So question was whether we could find a place to train them. Well, over on the west side of our field, where the officer club was and the athletic fields were, but it looked to me like there was enough space to, and grass, good grass sod there to do the training. But McAuliffe, who was going to take it on, was a little bit doubtful about whether it was good. I said, well, heck, I can land a B-13 over there. That's if I can do that, you can land a Piper Cub in there. So I said, I'll demonstrate it to you. So I came in over the guardhouse and landed over there. As I was taxiing down, I had full flaps, you know, and I was stuttering down like that to make a short landing as possible. When I was taxiing for takeoff, I heard the tower base owner said, got an airplane down on the west side of the field. I had to call up and apologize very profusely. I said, I didn't realize you were watching that closely on this side of the field. I thought you were looking out over the runways. And so McAuliffe was convinced that he did very
It
well.
would hold the wheels of the Piper
And
Cub.
incidentally, yesterday, it reminded me of something, walking out of the restaurant there in
Green.
Yeah, by the old mill. I saw the water tower there. Well, I climbed the water tower on the base. Did I ever tell you this? I climbed the water tower on the base. We had a rotating beacon on it at Waco there. And people were saying it doesn't show up very well. We don't really see it till we get awfully close. And that was true. I'd flown at night there and I noticed that myself. So I had the sergeant in that was responsible for it, and I said, did you really get the right angle above the horizon that you're supposed to have that thing set? And he said, yes, sir. He said, I did it all, and we went over to take the word together. He couldn't see anything wrong with what he'd done. I said, well, okay, something's wrong. I'm going to go up there myself and find out. Well, I climbed that tower, and the last part of it was slightly beyond the vertical as it left the stem, you know, went up
I
to
see.
the walk. Got
So
up
it
toward the
favored
wall. And
part of the...
after I got up there, I thought, well, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I sure the guy did it. Well, I found out that the thing hadn't been quite, the base of the lamp hadn't been
Horizontal.
level to see. So the angle was okay. It got in there, cranking it up.
Yeah.
There was a scale in there to read it, but of course, since the base wasn't level, it was off a little bit. So I was able to fix that. So we got that fixed. And then I was due to go to 4-engine training, leave the training command. And so I was assigned to 4-engine training at Fort Worth, Carswell, which is now Carswell, it was Carswell Air Force Base at Fort Worth, and B-24s, 4 engines. And we went there for a month for transition into 4-engine work.
Let me ask you, what was going on in Waco? Just training?
Well,
You were
that was basic training. That was the
Okay,
second-
okay, go ahead, yeah.
That was the second course
Right.
students went through, and they're 9-month training course, 3 months primary, 3
Right.
months basic,
I
3
mean,
months
that's where
basic.
the Army Air Corps was there. Okay, right.
Okay, so we went to Fort Worth, and I got together again with my roommate at West Point, Pete Overbloom. In fact, we both had children, both had families, and everything, so the girls all roomed. We got a house together and all that, and that was lots of fun. But
We still
Not so
spoke
much for
after
them.
it was over.
well, while I was there, I got a call. You have a call, and it was from Waco, and it was Colonel Sprague on the phone. He says, Colonel Herzberg, and I said, Major Herzberg, sir. He says, no, you're not. You're a lieutenant colonel now. Well, what he had done, I'm talking about being lucky. they had put me in for promotion, and it got the usual first bounce. I always come back the first time, you know, to see if you're really sincere about it, you know. And the second time I was already gone, so theoretically they weren't supposed to, since they'd lost me, one of their officers, they weren't supposed to put it in again, but they did. And Sprague told me about it. He said, put it in again. He says, you're a full colonel now. Okay, I mean a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
So then I went to Boise to get assigned to a training, training group, and as a lieutenant colonel, I was assigned as a deputy commander of a group instead of a squadron. Otherwise, as a major, I would just have a squadron. So that gave me a step up right there. And then we trained at Wendover in the wintertime, which was not a very pleasant field. It's on the Great Salt Lakes, Bonneville Flats there on the west side of the Great Salt Lake. And we can understand why speed records were set there, because people couldn't wait to get out of the place. The base was men lived in tents. It was pretty rough in the wintertime. And they burnt that Utah soft coal. And it would just, you'd have a black pail over the field. We had to get off before 6 in the morning on quiet days, otherwise the field was closed in, already closed in. And then we'd come back about noon, there'd be some breeze and ventilation and all that, so we could land again. Well, I spent a month there, and then I was assigned as advanced party. That is, 5 of us went over as advanced party. I had the party to England to go to where our base would be in England and see that everything was ready for our group when it came over. And and this is when Edna came up and to Wendover the last time, and she has some interesting stories there if you want to find out about that. But
We do.
Here I was going to Glory or whatever, and here she was taking care of 2 children, an older sister that needed management, you know, for most of the time.
Oh, my poor
Still
brother-in-law was dying.
Yeah.
Any dogs?
Here I was leaving her with taking care of all this while I was going over and having fun, you know, so to speak. So I got over to England in January, and got to the base, went through 8th Air Force, and
We're in 1942 now,
briefing.
early 42. We're early 42. This has all happened
43. This is now 43.
43. Okay, over the year, I understand.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor was 41, so you spent a year.
44.
January 44.
Year and a half
44.
in Waco.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
This is early 44.
I'm sure you were.
Okay.
Your combat,
Okay.
Alan, your combat missions, your first combat mission of the 467 was April 10th, 44.
Right, and I flew, Shower, the commander, flew the first mission, I flew the second mission, led the second mission. Went to Oschersleben or somewhere like that.
In what province of Germany? I mean, how deep?
This was not very deep.
No.
Shower had, the first mission, the 8th Air Force, the 8th Air Force assigned us was
Ushers.
Second Air Division, I guess, that was our immediate commander. The second area assigned was Bourges in South France somewhere.
Bourges, yes. Yeah.
And that was kind of considered what they call a milk run, you know. So that was just to kind of temper the guy. And then the second command, second mission which I had, we went into Oschersleben, which is just over the Dutch border into Germany, and a flying field there where we found a very pretty lake. I remember that lake and looking at it on the ground. Okay, so it was kind of interesting seeing the experience the people, the flying crews went through. They'd come over, you know, excited, kind of like, well, they were teenagers, most of them. I mean, they were 10 years younger than I was. And they kind of had the feeling of a usual high school kid, you know, that nothing can bother me and so on. And all excitement the first mission, maybe if they had any luck and they didn't see anything. And then they started losing friends, you know.
Buddies, yeah, right.
We had losses, but never had very heavy losses. But we had them, and you could see them kind of change and start getting a little nervous, you know. So there was a limit to what a person could stand. So they had missions set. It was 30 when I went over, 30 missions, and your combat tour was over. When I left there, it was down to 25, I think, was a tour. And so they needed something like that to see their way through, because otherwise you can see I can only fly so many times before I get it, you know.
Exactly, the statistics as such.
So that was interesting to see theirs, and some of them couldn't take it, and you called it combat fatigue. They just couldn't take it anymore. They started getting so nervous and couldn't sleep and stuff like that. And so you had to excuse them from flying. Not too many, but you had to, every once in a while, you watch people carefully to see that they weren't going, getting too far
And
gone.
this was for the commission officers and the non-commissioned officers as well, this
Yes,
tour.
the
I mean,
crew was
the
10
gunners and so on.
Crew was 10 men, that would be 4 officers and 6 enlisted men.
I see.
And
The same rules apply to
they
everyone.
they were the team. Of course, as a deputy commander, I didn't have a regular crew or anything. I flew with what we had lead crews, which we made train more and kept over there longer and all that. We didn't let them fly missions as often, so they get, you know, you could get through in a couple of months if they flew every mission came up almost, or every time you could. And we kept them on. And so we flew with the lead crews when we'd fly and lead of the mission, and we'd replace the co-pilot and fly in his seat and do his work. But we were the command pilots actually of the mission.
Of the mission, right.
Okay, let's see. Well, we went on through very nicely. I mean, had some problems with the morale in the field with the base, but we took care of that finally.
You mean you took care of that,
well,
must be factual.
What happened?
I'll just mention a little bit of it. Al Shower is very demanding, my boss, my boss. Al Shower, and he never expressed a bit of appreciation for anything. He'd do it on paper once in a while, because I saw my write-ups he made on me later on, but he never expressed appreciation for anything. Just, listen, now you need to do this, you know, that went this way, and I was the, what do you call it, the...
Buffer.
I was a wet towel, I mean the towel, I guess, for
Between the two.
all the squadron commanders, because they'd come around to me and say, we can't do anything right, what's gonna happen here and all that. Well, then we started on, and Shower was a nuts on close formation, which is a thing you needed to do because that's what gave you your protection. Being in a group.
Very tight, yes,
Yeah.
right.
Then we started on missions and started getting some pretty good bombing records and all that. Well, just it picked everyone up, you know. And they got the feeling, we're good and we're tough, you know.
Right.
And just the accomplishments that they were making, buoyed them up was enough to carry them through the tough regime that Al Shower was leading them on that.
He was a colonel or a general?
No, he ended up a colonel. He was promoted to full colonel when after the first month we got overseas there, and he ended up a colonel too. He was a natural wartime commander because he could be very demanding beyond the point of endurance, and yet if you were doing a job and something you knew was important, well, that buoyed you up, you know, carried you on through. Mm-hmm. So, and actually he was the only group commander I know of that brought his group overseas, saw it through until the war was over there, and brought it home. Had one of the best bombing records in the 8th Air Force, had the best low casualty losses. I think it was due to our good formation flying. We never got hit very strongly. Near the end, the Luftwaffe was getting pretty weak, you know, and they had to pool or what their resources they had in the way of fighters, and they would bunch them over a radio 8 or something like that, and the ground controllers would try to point them to somewhere where they thought the formations were weak, you know, and all that. They'd try to find a squadron that was out of place or broken up or something like that, and they would hit it. Well, when they did, they concentrated all their forces they had available on that one thing, and they would